Tennessee and the NCAA are going toe-to-toe right now. If you have been tuned out to this thing, we'll kind of catch up to speed. The NCAA is essentially investigating Tennessee for, at first, what seemed to be vague reasons, and then we sort of got further and further into this, and it was most specifically pointing to the recruitment of a one Nico Iamaleava, who is the future at Tennessee. You know him well. He had a high-profile recruitment. There was rumors about him being an $8 million recruit on the NIL front, and there was a lot of smoke around some things that happened during his recruitment, most specifically a private jet and some boosters on his visit to Tennessee. And basically the NCAA says, we're coming after you. And then Donde Plowman, who's the chancellor at Tennessee, goes full 8 Mile, releases a statement for the entire world to see, just pretty much shaming the NCAA, pretty much calling them out and saying, listen, y'all have been unclear from the jump, and you want to come after us for rules that weren't really even that clear to begin with, and you're saying we broke these rules and y'all got an issue with us. First of all, your rules don't even make sense. Not just are they unclear, the rules that you have in place defy human logic, defy human nature. And so that whole thing kind of took over the Twitter sphere. And then that following morning, Pete Thamel puts out a report per ESPN that says, hey, we don't just have a back and forth on Twitter. We don't just have Twitter fingers here. We have real deal lawsuits happening. We got Tennessee and Virginia coming after the NCAA. So what's going to happen here in court? We're about to find out. But I think this has greater impact than just this being like a win for Tennessee or, warding off the evil NCAA as it's perceived to be. Like this is, and I said this yesterday, this is legitimately college football versus the NCAA. And so what I want us to all get aligned on here is we are all rooting for Tennessee and Virginia to take down the NCAA. And I'll talk about that more here in a second. This is going to be clipped for a one-off video, and I think this one-off video will probably garner a good amount of traction. So if you're watching this one-off video, it's from our live show. We want y'all tuned into the live show. So make sure you subscribe to the On3 YouTube channel. College football, nothing but college football every single day right here on this show, The Hard Count. Make sure you're subscribed. We appreciate you for that. For those of you that are tuned in live that are down to hang with us for a little bit when we ask people to subscribe, we appreciate you for that as well. Okay, back to what I was saying. This is for the greater good. And I understand that in the SEC and just college football in general, we love it because rivalries are they're passionate. They're intense. There's a lot of emotion. A lot of y'all that watch this show are like, I would much rather have it be negative 45 degrees outside than root for Tennessee in any capacity. And to that, I would say more power to you. I understand where you're coming from. I personally would never, ever root for Columbia. I would never, ever root for Yale or Harvard or any of those other schools that I played against. I mean, I have a very, very strong feeling and a very, very strong sense of rivalry against those schools. But when we look at this situation, we got to kind of put those feelings aside for a second and understand that the enemy here is not Tennessee. You're not rooting for the downfall of Tennessee. We're rooting for the NCAA to eventually get what's been coming to them for all this time. And to put it another way, like what this would be to me is like the bully finally being taken down. Because we had Pete Nakos on this show yesterday, who is an incredible reporter for us here at On3, does phenomenal work. And this whole thing sort of broke loose, and I asked Pete to come on the show and make sense of it for us. And we asked, hey, Pete, what happens if Tennessee and Virginia win this lawsuit? Like what happens if they do end up victorious? And he was like, essentially, the NCAA would more than likely not be able to oversee college sports and NIL enforcement anymore. Y'all, that's a good thing. The NCAA has been the epitome of unreasonable for the last how many years? Tez Walker couldn't play in how many games this year? Daryl Jackson comes back to Florida State to be closer to his mom who's sick, and they say, no, you can't play. We got Mason Smith being suspended in an NIL era, and it's from something that happened before the NIL era, and we think suspending him is the best way to go forward. Like, look at the track record of unreasonableness for the NCAA. Y'all, it's not stopping. It's not stopping. And if they end up winning this lawsuit, the NCAA that is, they're going to continue to be the bully in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not for the long term, but this is, to me, Tennessee and Virginia taking a swing at the bully in the schoolyard. And that's really like a tale as old as time too, isn't it? The bully's only the bully until they get punched in the mouth, right? Until they have a little bit of someone else swinging back at them and somebody stands up to them. That's what Tennessee and Virginia are doing right now. And so if you're rooting for Tennessee and Virginia to get their lunch money taken, again, root for what you want to root for. But I'm just telling you, it's only a matter of time before that bully walks up to you in the schoolyard and says, hey, give me your lunch money. Now, remember, if Tennessee and Virginia had taken this bully down, we wouldn't be having to deal with this. So just because it's these schools right now, it's probably your school the next day or the day after that. Like at some point in time, the way this whole thing is trending, the NCAA is going to continue to act how they're acting. And so in this situation, we're rooting for Tennessee and Virginia as a college football public. You can root for whoever you want on Saturday. That's all, more power to you. I don't want Georgia fans rooting for Tennessee fans. That's not what we're here for. We're here, though, for the betterment of college football in the long run. Now, some people are going to see this and say, well, don't we need someone overseeing this whole thing? Like, if the NCAA isn't overseeing this, who is? It's a great question. I think the lack of the NCAA overseeing this, should this lawsuit be won by Tennessee and Virginia, would force someone else into power. And I'll tell you this, I will take 2 in the bush versus 1 in the hand with the NCAA every single time. I think the conference commissioners are better suited for this. I think we could be headed towards a model where a college football commissioner becomes a reality. That just makes way too much sense for us to leave that idea out there for too long. Like, something better will come along is what I'm trying to get at here. And when I say better, the bar the NCAA has set is extremely, extremely low. So I would also say when it comes to us needing leadership in the college football landscape, I think there's some feeling that if the NCAA wins this or loses this lawsuit and they're no longer overseeing college sports in the fashion they are right now and NIL enforcement in the way they are right now, I think there's some people that would say, well, wouldn't we just get the Wild West? Like, wouldn't we just get more anarchy? To that, I would have 2 thoughts. The first is the NCAA already isn't doing much to begin with. The second is the NCAA not being in the position they are right now or existing as they do right now, to me would feel a lot like whenever your boss goes on vacation for a week. Like when your boss goes on vacation for a week, you don't just lose your mind. The office doesn't burn to the ground. Why? Because people still have a specific goal for themselves in mind. They still want to advance. They want to get paid, all these things. And so the NCAA going out of the office for hopefully an extended period of time, college football wouldn't burn to the ground. People would just continue to do their job. People would continue to move forward and try and achieve what they want to achieve, which is ultimately success financially, success in their different sectors of their collegiate athletics. Like, we wouldn't see this whole thing burn to the ground. Also, what we have right now, the NCAA isn't doing a tremendous job enforcing anyway. And the reason why I say that is, like, if they were doing a tremendous job enforcing the rules as a whole, would you have Tennessee and Virginia taking them to court about this? Would you have them being sued over or having a lawsuit over this? Like, my answer would be probably not. So when I look at this thing in the long term, I think regardless of what happens in a lawsuit fashion between Tennessee and Virginia, I think the writing's on the wall here. Because even if Tennessee and Virginia somehow get their lunch money taken by the bully, they still threw a punch. And all it takes is for somebody to land one punch, for somebody else to see that happen and then say, oh, they're actually not that tough. Oh, maybe that power that we used to think they have, that reputation that used to be true for the NCAA, not really that strong anymore. They're not really all that anymore. They can't make us fearful of what they're going to do. So whether or not this ends up being the end of them, I think it's sort of the beginning of the end. And I can't wait to see what happens here, because the impact of this going forward, just like Pete Nako said yesterday on this show, is enormous and will change college athletics and change NIL and how we perceive that here for the foreseeable future. So history happening right in front of our eyes. We got a chapter in a future history book being written right now, and more power to Tennessee and Virginia for being the ones to throw the punch. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.